Yes, hello, Royalists. It's Tom and Paula here. Welcome. We are so happy to have you here today. I made a massive miscalculation yesterday and launched my new podcast on St. Patrick's Day, which just goes to show that although I may have moved to Ireland 20 years ago, I'm obviously still not really properly Irish, unlike our producer, Ben, who was at the St. Patrick's Day parade in Dublin and sent me some rather amusing photos. Can we see them, Ben?
Yeah. I just love that. I love that Ben survived because it's pretty scary out there at St. Patrick's Day parades. I know we had one in New York and lots of hooligans, if you will.
Lots of hooliganism. And as you can see, that massive teapot being carried down Dame Street, I think, in Dublin, with the slogan "Tea makes everything better," which is that a Father Ted slogan? I think it might be Father Ted. Someone else who was enjoying St. Patrick's Day was the Princess of Wales, Catherine, who was visiting the Irish Guards. And interesting trivia fact, the mascot of the Irish Guards is traditionally an Irish wolfhound. And this is the current mascot, who's called Seamus. And our fans will know in our credits, we have an Irish Guard walking the wolfhound, the wolfhound who was then the mascot of the Irish Guards around Buckingham Palace. Because, of course, the Guards were the regiments who were responsible for protecting the Queen, the most elite regiments of the army, the most smart and posh and fancy. And of all of those, lots of people would say that the Irish Guards were the most fun regiment and certainly the most crack. And Catherine afterwards went to the officers' mess, but did not drink a glass of Guinness as she has in previous years because she is off the booze since the cancer. So
that's a shame. I will say I do have Doug, as you know, the Dorgie, or Chorguini, as I call him. But I always thought if I was going to get very, very wealthy and could afford a big yard, my number one dog would be an Irish Wolfhound. Of course, to guard me and Doug, not to replace Doug. But they are the coolest dogs ever. They're like little hairy horses that look like old men.
They are very, very cool dogs. And I am so delighted that we've been able, because lots of people have said, oh, that clip's so good at the beginning. What's it about? What's it about? And I always knew that come St. Patrick's Day, we would have the opportunity to explain them. There's Catherine, obviously looking great in her green coat that she wears every year. I think it's Catherine Wheeler or something like that. She just wears the same coat every year. She's given up on doing fashion. I think she just looks great, right? Pull something in the cupboard.
Oi, she didn't give up on fashion. She is fashion, and it is most fashionable to re-wear a coat more than once. Note to Meghan. But you know, come on. She looks great. If you look great, you do it once a year. That's your green outfit. Bye-bye. I'm happy with it. I love her, and I think it sends the right message. Hold on to your awesome clothes until they don't fit anymore and you hit menopause. Sorry, I'm talking about myself. Go on, Tom.
I would totally agree with you, Paula. I didn't mean to imply that she didn't look fashionable. I meant that she's given up slavishly following fashion, like some other people we could mention. Paula. We have an extraordinary article in Variety, which I think could have been headlined. Maybe the headline would have been, a better headline would have been, why you don't want to pick a fight with Netflix and tell them they're crap as you walk out the door. Do you think that would have been a good headline? I mean, any other ideas?
I think that was a little wordy, Tom. I think if we were going to put it down, I just got two words. You're done. Boom. Mic drop. That's all you got to do. Or Harry and Meghan, Dunzo in Hollywood.
I'm going to give you a bit of context, Paula, if you don't mind. I'm going to give you a bit of context because I need to sing Paula's praises here. So yesterday, Variety published a sensational report saying that Meghan and Harry are on the outs in the streaming kingdom. And as I wrote in my Substack, The Royalist, props to my friend and colleague, Paula Froelich, who has been quoting sources at Netflix for over a year now, saying they were, quotes, done, close quotes, with the couple. The exact same formulation is used by one of 6 insiders Variety says they spoke to for this article. So I just, look, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. This is a really tough job because everything you do, everybody denies it, but they don't deny it on the record. They deny it off the record. People obviously don't want to speak on the record. So when Paula wrote that story, which was actually on, I looked it up, Paula, in News Nation, which is Paula's day job, on March the 7th, you know, they all said that it was rubbish, that it was all lies, that the partnership was stronger than ever, etc., etc., etc. But in fact, Paula, you know, you were completely right down to the actual word. So, I mean, Congratulations, Paula, on a fantastic scoop. And sometimes it does take a bit of time to be proved right. But hey, he who laughs last laughs longest.
Yeah, well, and also, by the way, when you say March 7th, we mean March 7th of last year. But bum. It's bonkers. So I did enjoy that, by the way. It's finally nice. But what I also think is fascinating is the spin that goes along every time you get a story that is locked down. The spin that they'll come out. They're not done. We've got another season. We've got a special. We've got a this. We've got a that. But the bigger issue is, in that story, despite Harry and Meghan saying that they're really good friends with Ted Sarandos, who's the head of Netflix, and his wife, and they socialize with him, Ted does not want to talk business or anything with her unless he is on a phone with a lawyer and the lawyer is listening. And that's really telling to a lot of people. Like, if you call up a friend and they won't talk to you unless there's a lawyer on, you got an issue. You know what I mean? And I'm sure he goes out and he says, hey, how are you? And all that stuff. But if they want to have a sit down, there better be a lawyer on call. And just so you guys know, I am going to be breaking a bunch of stories tomorrow and Friday on my Substack in News Nation. And it goes along with some more of their business deals. I can't get into that. I will give you a little bit of a hint. I was kind of wrong. I think I said a couple shows ago that Meghan and Harry were not moving into Australia with As Ever. Well, I may have spoken too early because I got the trademarks.
Well, that is very exciting, and we'll all be tuned in to Scoop with Paula Froelich tomorrow for these updates. So the thing with Ted Sarandos is fascinating. So this is the quote from the story. 3 insiders say Netflix chief Ted Sarandos is fed up with the pair. 2 sources insist that Sarandos recently said he would not sit for a call with the Duchess unless a lawyer was present on the line. Wow.
Yep. But also fed up because here's the deal. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of some advice. You too, Tom, but you already know this. When you work for a company, you never call the president because that president is busy AF. And there are people who can do it for you. When you go over the people you work with heads, it just pisses everybody off. And she has a habit of not wanting to deal with anyone except for the person who's number one or the name on the door. And because in her mind, she puts herself in that same category. But what else is in that article, Tom, that you jaw dropped? Because I got to tell you, there was a lot for me.
Well, I thought that another really interesting line was this thing about how they were fed up with Meghan and Harry because it seemed like they were just trying to repackage the same story of their exit from the royal family over and over again. But even more specifically, went into a bit of detail on it and said that they were particularly annoyed, which I always thought at the time, I always thought it was really odd that they gave that massive interview to Oprah after they'd signed the deal with Netflix. And apparently that did understandably irritate Variety, is the official word that they used. And then there's amazing stuff about Meghan's bedside manner, as they call it. What did you think of that bit?
Okay, it's also bonkers. I also got, which I'll be doing stuff on tomorrow, one of the call outs for a nanny job for Meghan. And apparently, while we all know, because it's been in the press and we've written about it as well, that they lost 11 PR people in 5 years? Those are just the public facing people. Apparently, the domestic staff is even worse of a massive turnover. And people are saying sometimes you walk in and there's all new faces. So it's going to be an interesting thing. And yeah, her bedside manner with anyone that she doesn't think is on her level. You know, Tom, honestly, it reminds me of the rule that my mom used to have on dates. She was like, look at how the guy treats the waiter, because that's how he's eventually going to treat you.
That's fascinating about the staff. So what they cycle through the staff as quickly as they cycle through the PR teams and the other people that we get to know about. So I suppose that's the thing, a PR officer, because the press deal with them, it's always incredibly difficult when they leave to cover that. But
well, the other thing is that they do have one nanny who's been with them forever. I mean, she must, it's everyone. You always find one who's into a little S&M. All right. So that nanny's been with them forever. They keep wanting to move her into Meghan's assistant position. So they have to hire other nannies. But, they have like 4 nannies at a time, BT dubs. So, go with God. That poor girl is never going to move up. I mean, although if that's your career arc, honey, go back to school. Jeez. Unless you're getting an on-the-ground education of, trauma and, psychic trauma influences, that's fine. I get that. But yeah, it's a little bonkers. And, here's the deal, Tom. Netflix is not only done with them, but Hollywood is done with them, as can be seen Sunday night, because Meghan and Harry were not even invited to the Vanity Fair Oscar party. Now, to be fair, I will say that this year the Vanity Fair Oscar party cut its list in half. However, 3 Kardashians and 2 Bezoses showed up, and no Sussex. So then the other thing is, Meghan's always like, my friend Beyonce. Well, she wasn't even invited to Jay-Z and Beyonce's after party at the Chateau Marmont, where Taylor Swift showed up. So I'm just saying.
You say, Paula, that Beyonce didn't send a text on this occasion.
No text, because you and I know she would have read it out, or at least put it on and slapped some flowers and put Lily's hand on top of it to be like, Beyonce said this. She loves Lily. Lily loves Beyonce, and then made Lily do the single girl's hand, just the hand across the screen. It would have been amazing. Yeah.
For anyone who can't remember what I'm referring to, in the Harry and Meghan docuseries, Meghan just suddenly goes, Beyonce's texted. Beyonce just sent a text, and I just love it. Like I saw Camilla Tominey, who's a very funny writer for the Telegraph. She said that periodically, about 6 times a day, she just goes, Beyonce just texted.
Oh, I'm going to start that. You know what? I'm going to start doing, Beyonce just texted. And then I'm also going to be like, the Bruce Lee movies were modeled after my mother. And just start coming out with other sorts of nonsense.
I'm slightly going through my phone looking at this Variety story, because I'm trying to find the thing where it talks about Meghan having this strange contradicting Harry in meetings and putting her hand on his arm. Do you remember that bit?
Oh yes. So that part of the story was she's kind of like the Harry interpreter, although Harry speaks English, so we don't know what she's trying to do except for just make him look like an absolute idiot. So they'll be in meetings and he'll start talking and she'll cut him off and go, "What Harry's trying to say is," or it's like Harry will be like, "Right, so Polo TV show," and she'll be like, "What Harry's trying to say is everyone wants a Polo TV show," and that kind of crap. Or when he's talking, she'll touch his arm or his leg and he'll be like,
Yeah, like the arm grab, the claw.
yeah, it's a little like, "Okay,
Yeah.
mother." Yeah. It's like, I know you British like to do the "I'll play mother" with the tea, and who gets to pour the tea. And well, apparently she's always playing mother. It's
Yes, this is the illustration that they used, and you can see it's absolutely brutal. All these
ugh.
brands dying, Netflix as ever, and then what's the one that survives? Penguin Random House, right? Yeah, so that's the one surviving, and there is actually.
By the way, Tom, no, it's not. It's another story I've got tomorrow. That's it. That's a little headline exclusive for you. Penguin at Random House also DONE done.
Very good. I'm just obeying that poster who said that we must not talk over each other. Did you see that?
I did, but I had to stop you because you were saying something that I know to be incorrect. And I know you would like to know what's actually going on. And so I didn't want you to have to have someone call you out later and say, "Hey, Tom Berg."
Very good. Do you think that it's fair to say that this is Netflix's revenge for what seemed like extremely ill-advised comments that they made when the As Ever thing came to an end, and they made this absurd claim that Netflix was holding her back? And it was so typical of the kind of Sussex operation that the thing ends in tears. People get to make their statements. These nice statements are drawn up and sent out. But then they sort of have to have the last word. They have to be the ones who say, "Oh, well, actually, Netflix were far too unambitious for our liking." And I get the impression that any big company would almost have an obligation to respond to somebody saying something like that about them in the global media.
I agree. Well, here's the deal. They could have, and what they should have done is worked with Netflix to give them, this is going to be our statement, blah, blah, blah. Here's this. But I think she felt she had to go the extra mile because she wanted to let everyone know it was going to be so big and amazing. And the reason why it wasn't so big and amazing is because Netflix was too slow. So yeah, I think that did piss him off, frankly. But here's the deal. Do I think that this is in direct retaliation? No, because this story was in the works for a long time. You can tell by the amount of people they've talked to, not to mention people in Netflix just really didn't like her, and they really didn't like the show. They didn't like anything about the products. And you know this because all the stories that have come out, including the one I did last year, the one that Page Six did, another one that Page Six did, that Netflix was just trying to give away all the products. And, speaking of which, there was a line in there that there were $10 million worth of products that Netflix couldn't get rid of. And so I think she was just trying to spin this. And yes, she probably did piss people off, but she had already pissed people off. They were already talking to everyone because, when you're lousy to the waiters, we all talk. I say that because I used to be a waiter.
It's yet another chapter, really, in the incredible spanking of what once looked like a fantastic hand, and they just appear to just be, their timing also is so unbelievably bad, because at this exact moment with the whole world going up in flames, you know, transport, logistics difficulties, the price of oil, the price of gas going through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Yet today, with the colossal cost of living pressures that are going on all around the world, we had Meghan sending us, now that she's liberated from Netflix and doesn't have to run anything by them, we had Meghan sending out a Easter hamper, which looked frankly like it had a box of tea and a few flowers in it, priced at $300. It is so unbelievably tone deaf, tin-eared, whatever you want to call it. And then to add all on top of it, how does she choose to promote it? With a post on Netflix featuring her children, which Ben may or may not have been able to upload off Instagram. So we may be able to get a look at that. But while we try and find that, Paula, what did you make of A, that mail shot, and B, this new video with the kids and the flower arranging and Harry saying how great her flowers are and blah, 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 blah?
Okay, first of all, let's just go back to the product itself, right? And I got it this morning. I clicked on it and I was like, whoa! So technically, I think it's like 250, but with shipping and taxes, it is 300, possibly over 300. It's a bunch of flowers that don't even look like they're in a vase, so they'll probably arrive wilted or dead, unless you live in Montecito. There's tea and there's honey. And I'm just like, who the hell has $300 for that? Like, at this point, you know, she has become the Duchess of the rich. You know, it's just Duchess of Montecito, of course, but she only wants to deal with people who have a lot of money. And, you know, Tom, like you and I are not scraping, we're not looking for handouts here. But at the same time, I'm not doing that for 300. I can go to Whole Foods and get it all done for 45 bucks. And Ben put his bike. I don't want to be on alone, Ben. I don't honestly, you guys, I get so self-conscious when I'm on alone and Tom's not there, because then I feel like, who am I talking to? But Ben's not listening, so we'll keep going. Oh, yay! Thanks, Ben. Whoa! So, but the other thing is, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's ridiculous. It is. It's like we're the day before, she was like, I've got a brand new announcement coming. And you're like, okay, you're doing something with a florist. All right. But it's not for any of us who either don't have that much expendable cash right now because we're worried about gas or fuel prices or our rent, but it's more about, you know, her and her friends who have private jets. And it's absolutely bonkers. And then, of course, you've got Lily making yet another entrance. I mean, first of all, where's Archie? Is he in the closet? Like, have they locked him away somewhere? Because I talk about giving a kid a complex, right? Like, it's all about Lily. Archie is nowhere. But Lily is once again shown, granted, not 3/4 face, just kind of half. And there she is hiding her face. I mean, imagine this kid is going to grow up being like, I'm Lily. But I mean, it just goes back to like Harry saying, don't put your kids online. Okay, boom. Have you talked to your wife?
I just find that photograph so shocking. Like, and I know there's a part of me, I know like there's and somebody sent in a message to my Substack today saying, you know, something like, oh, just get over it. Like, you know, JJ Abrams, $250 million deal with Netflix, and nobody goes on about him. Not, you know, this shit happens in the world. And it's true that it does happen, but it's the context of it is that 6 years ago, right, this couple walked away from the British royal family throwing bombs at a really, really beloved institution that's incredibly important to not just to British people, not just to Commonwealth citizens, but to people all over the world who identified with them. And in this era of like fucking shit, frankly, where just we can't trust anyone and everybody seems to have a motive and everyone's trying to make a buck off you. Do you know what I mean? At least the one thing you knew about the British royal family, you know, was that they weren't trying to rip you off. I mean, okay, maybe they were taking your taxes if you were British, but like they weren't trying to sell you some load of shit that was like, you know, for their own interests. And Meghan and Harry walked away from that saying they were appalling, awful people. And as far as I'm concerned, tried very hard to inflict severe damage on the family. And they say now, oh, we never intended to bring the family down or anything like that.
Oh, please.
Right. Does anyone think for a moment that they would have been upset if there had been some kind of mad Diana popular uprising in the UK and people had gone out on the streets and ripped the gates of Buckingham Palace and the royal family had to stand down? I honestly don't think that would have been. I think they'd have been delighted, frankly. I think they'd have been delighted. And for them now to be literally exploiting their children to sell jam, I'm just like, it's just so disturbing. And the way that the child is just so cynically revealed, inch by inch, you know, turn by turn, corner by corner. I think it's absolutely, I think they've just lost their minds. And I think they have so little respect now around the world. And people say, why do you keep talking about them? It's because of what they did 5 years ago. That is why they are still interesting, because these are people who tried to ruin the monarchy.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing is, actually, Ben, can we go back to that video? Because the funniest thing about that video to me is, if we could play it from the beginning, yes. So she does that. There's this guy on Instagram, and I will think of his name and put it in the comments after. There's this guy who does this great imitation of Meghan constantly, and I literally thought that was him the first time I saw it. I was like, oh my God, she might have gotten a sense of humor and actually got this guy to do an Instagram for her. No, it wasn't, though. It's just that he's so goddamn spot on. He also does Blake Lively as well, which is amazing. But the other thing is, when somebody mentioned J.J. Abrams, the thing about J.J. Abrams is he has demonstrable talent. He has demonstrated over and over and over that he is very good at what he does. The problem with Meghan and Harry is that they don't have talent, they have entitlement. And they came out, and I think Harry's biggest issue is everything was always done for him, and it was done well for him, say charity or whatnot. And so he thought that's just how things were. And that Meghan would now take care of everything. And Meghan thought she knew everything, and that she knew how to deal with the press, and she knew how to manipulate America to just, this is what Americans want. This is what I'll give them, and they'll love me. It's like, I'm going to be Oprah mixed with Gwyneth Paltrow. And you're like, girl, maybe if you had tried this crap in 2004, that might have gone a little bit better. But no. Right now, it's just, it's seen as very cynical. And a lot of people are just like, oh, you're doing a cash grab. I'm not cool with that, because especially right now, I need my cash.
I think that's the point. And I think, like, you know, I remember about 10 years ago, I had an Airbnb business, right? And
I remember.
Right? It did really well. And I remember being just so delighted with myself and being like, yeah, I'm a genius. I've sorted it out. I'm so clever. And I remember I was reading this story in the New Yorker about leadership. And it said, you know, it was basically about the myth of leadership. And it said, you know, that companies spend millions of dollars hiring these different people, great leaders, inspiring leaders. Then 3 years later, they're all fired and they all go. And it just had this brilliant line in it that really put me in my place. And it said, the only thing over time that repeatedly affects how a business performs is the prevailing economic conditions in which that business is operating, right? And it's such a brilliantly simple point. It's always stayed in my mind, because actually your business needs to fit the prevailing economic mood and scene at the times. Now, at that time in Ireland, and everybody had loads of money and everybody wanted to come to Ireland on holiday, so it was brilliant. And guess what? I did really well. And then COVID happened and the rest is history. But not to get into my personal business problems, But like the reality is this business of As Ever could not be more inappropriate to the mood and the reality of people's lives on March the 18th, 2026. It could not be further away from what people want to spend their money on, what people are concerned about, what they think is an appropriate use of their money. And I do believe there is a market for expensive stuff, you know, but like not bad expensive stuff. Like that, as you say, that ship has like definitely sailed. The time where you could just stick a Meghan made by Meghan logo on it and expect it to sell is just it's a long time in the past, and Meghan just seems to have this terrible timing over again.
But she also doesn't do market research, or if she does, she doesn't listen to it. So, you know, it's very interesting. It's like, even look at the trip coming to Australia. It's very easy to look up her popularity numbers in Australia. It's very easy to look around and kind of get the wind, the temperature, where's it going? And also to understand that, 2018 might not have gone so well, and these people might not like me, and I might need to say, guys, I'm sorry, that was just a rough time. My bad, you know. But she doesn't have the humility to do that. So, you know, I say, done it. And people, you know, it's funny, Tom, because people are like, oh my God, you and Tom are like obsessed. Why do you keep on about it? And I go, because it's Days of Our Lives is over. This is our new soap opera. And also, Jeeble, Pete, I can't believe it. It's like, just when you think they can't do anything weirder or more insane, they do. It's almost like, come on, man, this is my soap opera now. It's nuts. I mean, the only thing I need to know is what's going to happen in 3 years when every single thing has absolutely dried up. It's drying up now, but the money will last for a couple more years. The issue is, you know, Tom, you and I were talking about this in private. Their bills, or actually, no, I'm sorry. I was talking about it with a friend of mine who actually knows about their money. Sorry, but you and I have talked about it before. Their monthly bills are insane. I mean, $200,000 to $300,000 a month. We're talking mortgage, keep the lights on, and security. That's a lot of money that you need to come in. $200,000 to $300,000 a month equals $500,000 cash before taxes. So at some point, it's gonna the input is going to really, really stop. And I think it is now, but we're not going to see the real effect for another couple years when they're just stuck in a money pit, surrounded by a bunch of stuff and not being able to afford anything. I mean, the whole point of them trying to get IPP and British taxpayer funded security is so that they don't have to shell out a couple million a year for their security.
Yeah, totally. Well, someone who doesn't have to worry about their security is the King of England, King Charles III, who was out today meeting the President of Nigeria alongside William and Catherine. I actually found these photos incredibly disturbing. I felt that the King looks very weak in them. When you've seen him out and about lately, he's been, you know, obviously wearing a lot of makeup. I know we all know what he's going through because he's told us. He's fighting cancer. He's reduced his treatment. He very much pitched that as that this was good news and that this was enabled by the brilliant level of care that he had been getting. I just wonder, looking at these photos, really how long this narrative can continue to hold in the British newspapers. I noticed that the newspapers in the UK now, it's like they don't want to be caught out by it. So they're running these pictures very prominently, but they're running it alongside copy, basically suggesting that the King has a sort of mild cold, as far as I can tell.
Right.
You can see someone's pointing out his hands there. You know, it's not a great, overall, it's not a great look. I've never in all my years of doing this job, I've never perceived such a massive disconnect between what is being told in the newspapers and what is going on the ground and what people are saying on the ground. The official line, it's very reminiscent of the abdication of Edward VIII, when the British newspapers didn't carry anything about it really until December of 1936, and he abdicated on, I think, the 7th or the 8th. So it's very, very similar to that. It has reminders of that. I mean, what was your impression looking at those photographs today, Paula?
All right. Well, what struck me, Ben, if we can go back to the last one, with the hands are swollen. Now, to be fair, he's always had sausage fingers, but they're even more swollen and red. And then you look at his face, and it looks like there's bruising on his face, and it's just the color. You can tell there's makeup, and it's not good. You know, I wrote a story last year that he had decided to not do chemo and, you know, the regular cancer treatment. He wanted to do some other treatment because, to be fair, chemo is horrific and it's very difficult. But yeah, you know, I'm hearing some not great things. But what do you think, Tom? Do you think, here's the deal, and it's horrible to talk like this, but it's the head of the monarchy. Do you think, A, he's going to be around for the Invictus Games in Birmingham? And B, do you think he would ever think of stepping aside? I personally don't think he would step aside.
I think A, we don't know. B, no. I think what the really interesting, the really fascinating thing for me in all of this, and as lots of people know, I'm slightly obsessed with the story of the death of the Queen, and I am slightly, and call me ghoulish if you will, but I am slightly obsessed with the death of monarchs, and I don't think it's a bad thing as a storyteller to be interested in or obsessed by. And I think if you look at any great historical narrative, whether it's, you know, or a fictional narrative, whether it's Shakespeare or whether it's Game of Thrones, the moment that people start to notice or start to worry that the monarch is about to die, everything changes. And that's what happened in the British monarchy on February 2024, when King Charles announced he had cancer. And the point is that that whole announcement was incredibly badly handled, because he didn't mean to announce that he had cancer originally. Originally, he said he was going into hospital to have treatment for a benign prostate. And the unfortunately, when he was in there, they discovered that he had the cancer. Sorry, did you want to say something?
No. I was just saying, I was agreeing with you 100%, but also the fact that you're right about the deaths of monarchs, because for a year or two before that, that's when the family starts jostling. And
one of the most amazing scenes in Hilary Mantel's book, Wolf Hall, it might even be the second one, is when King Henry VIII is jousting and he gets knocked off the horse and he dies for like 3 minutes. And they all drag him in, and I'm thinking more of the film. They drag him in, and Damian Lewis, you know, and Cromwell comes through, and everybody's screaming at him, "You're fucking dead, Cromwell! You're dead!" You know, like, and it's chaos and it's mental. And he goes and he's like, "Why is nobody trying to revive him? Why is?" And he's sending all these orders. He's like, "You go up to the country and get Princess Mary, get her safe. You go to the ports before the ports close. You go there. You go there." Everyone's being sent out. And then he goes up to Henry, and literally, with the conviction of someone who's actually trying to save his own life, not trying to save Henry's life, he smacks him on the chest, and he smacks him on the chest, and he kind of splutters and comes back to life. And then, of course, he has to go, "You go and catch the person that I've sent up to Mary. You go and catch the person that I've sent to the ports." And it's an amazing encapsulation of how important these moments are. And I do genuinely feel for my colleagues in the British press and the Royal Rota, because they do fantastic work, right? Look at the Prince Andrew story. That was all led by the Mail on Sunday. It was the Mail on Sunday who believed Virginia Giuffre, who published those pictures of Virginia Giuffre. So I'm not on the side of these people who say, oh, they're just in the pay of the palace and they're this and they're that and it's all corrupt. It's not true. But what is true is that the King's press office has become so powerful that it's able to manipulate the narrative specifically around the King in the newspapers so effectively that it's actually become counterproductive. And I use the example sometimes of like Animal Farm, you know, where the pigs are standing in the farmyard reading out, you know, it's the best year ever for corn and everyone's got enough food, and they're going, but we're not, because we're dying of hunger. So it's not adding up. And I think they've kind of almost been a victim of their own success, because you're not allowed to talk about the King, you're not allowed to talk about his health, and so they haven't. And it's absolutely ridiculous, frankly, because it is a matter of constitutional importance. And having Charles made this terrible mistake, in my opinion, by announcing he was going to have this benign prostate surgery, then he went in he announced it before he went in. Then when he was in, they found the cancer. So when he came out and people asked the question, how was it? They had a very terrible choice, which was either to lie or tell the truth that he had cancer. And of course, what the Queen would have done, and what she always did, and what Catherine did when she went in for surgery at the same time, was go in for the surgery, and then once it's all over, say, I've been in for surgery. Because, okay, they did find cancer with Catherine, but it meant that they were able to announce it on their own schedule. Now, you can argue they messed that up with the extended period of silence and that kind of stuff, but it wasn't like Charles. Charles announced his cancer 3 days after being told that he had it. That is a disaster. And the whole monarchy, in my opinion, has been in a complete state of chaos since that day, February the 6th, 2024. That's when it all went tits up.
I'll tell you what I'm actually really wondering right now. Charles and Camilla are supposed to be in the United States in 1 month and 10 days. And, you know, you guys have ministers over in England saying, don't go if there's a war on. And then you've got people saying, is he fit enough to travel? I'm just wondering if he's going to be able to show up.
I think it's a really, really good question. And I think that it's very odd that they haven't officially announced the tour yet. Although we've all been told the date, you know, et cetera, et cetera. It's really, really weird. And at first it was like, yeah, they're just being a bit cautious, blah, 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 blah. But now it is super weird that they haven't announced it. And I think people are getting quite spun out about it. And I think that I really want to make this clear. I really, really think Charles has been unbelievably brave. And my God, if he was my dad or my grandpa going out doing that every day, I'd be so unbelievably proud of him. It's really, really, really hard to continue with life, you know, even when you're just unwell, let alone when you're facing into death. I mean, which is what he's facing into. And he's been incredibly brave. And he does remind me a bit of, it reminds me of the sort of Nile Rodgers story. I don't know if you're into Nile Rodgers from Sheep.
I'm not, but let me just ask you something real quick before we get into Nile Rodgers. I mean, at this point, if they call it off, it will look like a rebuke to Trump. And the reason why he is going is to help smooth over Trump relations with Britain. So I think they're just cutting it very, very close. I think they need to either call it off or just say it's on like Donkey Kong.
I think they would like to, but I think they can't. And I think that there is more going on than just the diplomatic thing. Because, look, frankly, Trump's always been a loose cannon, right? That is not the issue. Like, it's the job of the king to go and make nice with leaders who are being difficult, right? That is a core part of the job. So the fact of whether Trump's dropping bombs on Tehran or whether he's invading Greenland. I mean, last time they came, he was invading Greenland, which, you know, arguably is of more relevance to the United Kingdom, since it's a member of NATO. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I don't think actually that the political dimension, to me, it just doesn't feel credible that is what's holding back this announcement. And
by the way, but here's the problem. It doesn't need to be credible when it's Trump. Trump will see anything as a personal slight. So if they wait to the last minute, Trump is doing something every day, right? If they wait to the last minute, they'll say it was a rebuke for that, and then Trump will go off. I'm just saying it needs to happen sooner rather than later.
I think they need to. I think somebody needs to make a decision, but I think it's really hard. And what I'm saying, Paula, is that I think it is actually much more likely to be about the king's health.
Yeah,
realistically, because I don't think anyone.
Which, by the way, I think we're agreeing. I'm just saying, in Trump's head, it's all about Trump. So whether it's about his health or not, it's going to look and feel like a rebuke for him. And it's going to do the opposite of smoothing over relations, is what I'm saying.
I get your point. Ben, let's just have one more look at those pictures from today. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. I just found them very worrying. That he definitely, he definitely goes up and down. So when he's out and about doing things, and I know lots of the reporters who turn up at these things as their job, who turn up on a daily basis, and they definitely, it just seems incredibly unpredictable. One day everything's great, he's got loads of energy, the next he's completely shattered, completely exhausted, and we don't know what treatment schedule he's on anymore. We knew up until the end of the year that he was on weekly treatments. Well, actually, I think it was more like a 6-week cycle with then like 4 weeks off. But they've been much more careful now about not saying what the cycle is, so we can't really interpret it. And indeed, look, that person saying, "Stop worrying about it. He's fine. Stop worrying about him. He's dealing with it. Leave him alone." I completely hear what you're saying, Jilly Bean. I completely hear what you're saying. But the reality is that he is the head of state, and because it's a hereditary position, the health of the monarch is actually a matter of public interest.
Well, it'll be interesting because I still think that Harry and Meghan are doing their April trip to Oz just to get a lot of attention just before, Grandpa comes or Daddy comes. And, it's just interesting. He hasn't seen them in quite a while. I don't think he will see them again in a while. There's talks of Birmingham and Invictus, but I don't think he'll go. And Tom Bowers certainly doesn't think he'll go. Now Charles will go up and meet with them. And yeah, I see someone saying send Will and Kate. Will and Kate are coming in July for the official celebration. So that's going to be the big thing. And hopefully by then, the Middle East might have calmed down, so there won't be any big protests or whatnot. But I also do wonder what Harry and Meghan have planned for July. Because they're not going to let that go. Shiny, shiny over here. I'm dropping another bookmark. Bedazzled.
Paula, it's been so wonderful to be here with you this afternoon, and it was particularly great to have Paula on my new podcast, which launched yesterday for the Daily Beast, which was really fantastic. And thank you so much, Paula, for coming on that. And thank you so much to so many people in this community for taking some of your valuable time yesterday and spending it with us on the podcast, and indeed taking a valuable time today and spending it with us. We really, really appreciate it. We don't take it for granted. We apologize for when we talk over each other, and we are trying to be good. We are trying to be better, aren't we, Paula?
I thought we did fine, Tom. There was only one time I had to cut in because I was like, that's not actually, hold on.
All right, now I want to go into that. I was just describing the photograph. I was just describing the photograph. I was saying that's what the photograph is saying. I wasn't saying.
No. I was talking about when you were talking about the publishing deal.
Yeah, because the
photo was still on.
If you'd let me finish, Miss Froelich.
No, honey. You actually, okay. Now we're going to talk over each other because this is baloney skins.
Do you want me to do my impression of David Sherborne?
Obviously.
It's very good. So this is Harry's lawyer. Okay. Just accept it, Miss Froelich. You cut in on me.
Okay, and here's the judge. Shut up, Sykes. I'm done. I've told you once and I've told you before. Stop it.
And with that, I think we'd better call it a day, Ben, before we have an on-air fight. We love you. Mwah.
I would never fight with you. I love you. And I love you guys.